We're ready to start the meeting.
Okay. Roll call, please. Emily?
Leonard Barnard,
Yes.
and Bishop,
Yes.
Lori Coleman,
Here.
Matt Keys,
Yes.
Jane Lewis,
Here.
Tom Snowman,
Yes.
Mike Krulak.
Here.
Everyone, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. Is there any amendments to the agenda? Hearing none. Recognition of audience requests to address the Board of Education. Is there anyone?
There's no one here, but I did emails I received today. I believe it was approximately 5 emails. I forwarded them all on to the board members.
Okay. After that, 5, presentation of reentry remote learning plan. Ralph, you're at the first one. You go.
I'd like to start this off with a statement, and then after I'm done with my statement, I will turn it over to Jason Parsons, the curriculum director, and then after Jason is done presenting the initial part of the plan, he will turn it over to Director of Student Learning, Julie Tarvin, and then all of us will be available for any questions from the board. Okay, parents, friends, guardians, community members, and school board members. At the outset, I would like to apologize for the length of time it has taken our school district to develop the reentry plan you are going to learn about tonight. I know the delay has created a lot of anxiety within the community and with parents as they anticipate the opening of our schools. During the development of this plan, the priority has consistently been the safety of the students and staff, while at the same time maintaining the highest level of quality education. To say the least, it has been difficult and time-consuming to develop a consequential plan, as the rules and mandates provided by the state have been very challenging. Nonetheless, we understand the cautiousness of the state and support their mandates and recommendations. Thankfully, due to the hard work of our staff and administrators, we feel we've developed a plan that will provide the safest possible environment and still maintain the highest expectations and quality of education. In my 35 years of education, I never dreamed I would be making a presentation of this magnitude. This is by far the most difficult recommendation I have made in my career. Nonetheless, it is a decision that none of us have taken lightly, as it affects the entire Canton community. After much deliberation and careful consideration, I have determined that any form of in-person learning as we begin school in August will A, potentially compromise the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff and their families, B, significantly compromise our high expectations for teaching and learning. As a result, I'm recommending that Canton District 66 students start the school year on a remote learning schedule. That schedule will encompass, number 1, classes for all students will begin on Monday, August 19th. 2, teachers will report on 8/12, 8/13, 8/14, 8/17, and 8/18 for training. 3, students will receive instructions synchronously 2.5 hours a day. Synchronously means live online instruction with a teacher. And asynchronously, which means projects, essays, tests, quizzes, etc. All instruction will be provided through our Google Classroom platform. 4, students will follow a carefully designed daily schedule to provide structure for our families and our students and our community as a whole. 5, the Illinois State Board of Education has removed restrictions on assessments and grades for students for the 2021 school year. As a result, we will return to our pre-March 13 standards assessments and grading practices. 5, we will provide meal service for students in need. 6, we will provide virtual student services and support for students. And finally, number 7, we will periodically reevaluate our plan using regional and local metrics and review ISBE guidelines to determine if health and safety conditions allow us to gradually bring additional students, faculty, and staff back to campus in a blended learning model. This was a difficult decision to make, knowing the impact it will have on our families. Because this decision is significant, it is important to share with you our rationale why we believe starting the year in a remote learning model is the best option at this time for our students, faculty, and staff. Blended versus remote. While the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff have been the important priority in our planning, we also want to ensure that our students receive the highest quality education. During our planning period, staff has studied the ISBE and CDC guidelines thoroughly. We've also consulted with our legal counsel and liability insurance providers to ascertain if shortcuts or adjustments to the official school reopening guidelines are possible. Unfortunately, both our legal counsel and insurance providers have advised us that the guidance should be followed very closely. To not do so would place our students and district at risk. In addition to requiring face masks and limiting gatherings to 15 people or fewer, ISBE guidance makes it clear that students should implement social distancing at 6 feet or greater to protect students and adults from viral transmission. In a school districts with buildings containing populations of 240 to 750 students and staff, the only way we could come close to adhering to these social distancing guidelines is to reduce the number of students on campus in half. As we began our planning, we quickly realized that the most effective way to adhere to social distancing requirements was to create a blended learning model. For the past 2 months, we've developed a blended learning model in which students would be on campus 2 days a week, learning remotely 1 day a week, and doing independent work the other 2 days per week. This would mean that the students would be in Canton CUSD 66 classrooms with a teacher 8 days a month. Although the blending learning model we developed would have provided students with two days of in-person instruction, this model has significant limitations. A blending learning schedule would only enable students to be on campus 2 days per week given the ISBE social distancing guidelines. Students would be doing asynchronous work, projects, essays, tests, quizzes, 2 days per week at home without any contact with their classmates or classroom teachers. In a blended learning model, we would only be able to cover 50 to 60% of the course curriculum, thus putting our students at significant disadvantage compared to what more we can accomplish in a fully remote learning model. While certainly ideal, beginning the year in a remote learning model provides several benefits. A remote learning model allows students to connect every class period every day with their classroom teacher and classmates. Student schedules will more closely resemble our current daily format with classes during the day and homework assignments, readings, etc. in the evening. Remote learning classes will meet every day and will cover our course curriculum. Daily instruction will provide us with a stronger opportunity to prepare students for subsequent studies. Obviously, everyone would prefer returning to a pre-March 13 Canton School District learning model. Unfortunately, that is not possible at this time. Of the remaining options, we strongly believe that a remote learning model is the best option for keeping students on track academically. Health and safety, the most important priority in making our decision regarding the start of the school year has been the health and safety of all members of our learning family. Unlike other elementary schools, it will be impossible to implement guidance from the Illinois State Board of Education and Center for Disease Control that recommends the isolation of students into self-contained classrooms throughout the school day. Middle and high school students change classes to move from one curriculum-specific room to another. This would also create challenges for those students that are enrolled in vocational and advanced courses. Another significant challenge that the guidance documents present is the mandated quarantine and contact tracing procedures. The quarantine and contact tracing procedures we have received from IDPH and the Illinois State Board of Education make it very clear that we could potentially have dozens of students, faculty, and staff members quarantined for up to 14 days at various points throughout the fall. For example, the most current guidance in July 2020 from IDPH states that those who had contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19 or is suspected of having COVID-19 infection should isolate at home and monitor for symptoms for 14 days. Close contact means the individual was within 6 feet of the individual with symptoms for more than 15 minutes. As some schools have tried to open up sports camps, we have already seen the significant effects that contact tracing and quarantine will have. There will be constant interruption and shutdowns with potentially dozens of students, faculty, and staff members being quarantined at various points throughout the first semester. This constant and continual interruption will have a serious and negative impact on our ability to provide students with a consistent, high-quality learning experience, cause panic amongst parents, and create chaos throughout the community. Whatever benefit there may have been to having students in school for 2 days a week will be quickly invalidated when they and their teachers will need to be quarantined for 10 to 14 days at home, one or more times as we start the year when the flu season starts in the fall. In closing, I want to reiterate that this decision has been very difficult. We all want our children back in school in person, including my own. However, under the circumstances, we don't feel we can conduct a normal in-person format and still maintain a safe school learning environment. At this time, I would like to defer to our directors to present the plan. Jason Parsons.
Hey, Rolf. Hey, Jason, before you get started, it's Matt. Are we sure that the public was able to hear that statement? Rolf, I'm getting text messages from parents that said the feed disappeared.
I will post the statement online.
Excellent. Good. Thank you. It was very good. Thank you.
So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen so Jason can start off the presentation, okay?
So our presentation tonight takes the phases in progress and goes through some of the details of each phase. So Julie, could you go to the next slide, please? So our commitment, like Rolf said a few minutes ago, we're definitely all committed to getting kids a normal learning environment as quickly as possible. We've also understand that the logistical and the concrete planning and guidance documents have given us some interesting planning phases over the last couple of months. Just recently, yesterday, ISB put out new recommendations for remote learning at 1 o'clock. So we've actually taken some of that and put into our plans already. So that's the nature of the environment right now. This reentry plan includes the 4 phases, and it also includes some of the important dates that regardless of what phase that we're in, here's the start of the school year, where the 12th through the 18th, 12th, 13th, 14th are considered Teacher Institute days. The 17th and 18th are going to be teacher planning days, or for the remote learning or hybrid, whatever we start with. If we do start with phase 4A, which is the full remote, we will use these dates for possible device distribution, and we'll put out a detailed schedule once that decision is made. Again, the first day of student attendance, whether that's in which phase, will be August 19th. A summary of this reentry plan, there's 4 phases right now. We kind of base the phase numbering or title based on the governor's phase 4 or phase 5, because that's kind of where we're at. So we have phase 4A, B, and C, and phase 5. 4A is remote learning. where it provides the lowest amount of risk for students and staff and engages in those virtual classes, activities, and events. Just like what Rolf said about synchronous, which is live instruction, or asynchronous, which is stuff that's been assigned and students can do on their own. Phase 4B is that blended learning or a hybrid type of model that provides a transition into partial student population of attendance if the conditions, circumstances, and metrics improve for around the COVID-19 pandemic. Moving into phase 4C is more of an enhanced blended learning. ISB's guidance says that you should target vulnerable student populations to bring them into the in-person learning. And again, that is based on whatever conditions, circumstances, and metrics if they're improving. Where we're all wanting to go and where we will be eventually is phase 5. That is in where we are in full in-person learning. That's where it's a traditional schedule while respecting if there's any federal or state or local health guidance or requirements, depending on, like what regions we're in. So next slide, I'm gonna turn that over to Julie Tarvin, our Director of Student Learning.
So I'm going to review some of the general expectations that we can expect should we be in a remote learning setting. So to start off, just defining what remote learning is. Remote learning is where the student and the educator are not physically present in a traditional classroom environment together. Information is relayed through technology such as discussion boards, video conferencing, and online assessments. We also want to take time to acknowledge that we know that there are students in our community who are non-online families, and that we will provide support and materials to those families as needed and monitor that very closely. When we think about the general expectations of the day and what it will look like, students can expect that there will be attendance taken daily, that they will have all content offered to them. Students and families can be reassured that SEL instruction will be provided. Per the ISB recommendations, we will be requiring at least 2.5 hours of synchronous or live instruction daily. We have 2 learning management systems for the district. K1 is going to be using Seesaw, and grades 2 through 12 will be using Google Classroom. This means that those are the learning platforms parents and students can expect to access any material or assignments or information from their teachers. There will be an established, consistent virtual office hours. Teachers will receive ongoing professional development. Teachers will work collaboratively weekly with their colleagues to ensure equitable student experience in learning, pacing, and similar opportunities for assessments. Student work will be graded and assessed. Teachers will provide timely feedback to improve student learning. Teachers will respond to emails within 48 hours, and support staff will assist in the review of synchronous and asynchronous instruction. Now I'm going to turn it back over to Jason, and he's going to talk about some of the general parameters for phase 4B.
All right, in phase 4B, that is our blended learning, or sometimes called hybrid. It means combining the traditional in-person teaching with remote experiences conducted through technological or non-technological means. Blended learning offers the opportunity to merge the strengths of both the in-person and remote learning methods to create a more cohesive learning experience. We did learn quite a bit this spring on that experience. We've hopefully put some measures in place to help out teachers, parents, and students regarding that remote learning aspect. Some of the parameters that we're going to put in place for a blended learning model would be an A and B model for the schedule. This is all following those guidelines that Rolf alluded to earlier about ISB's social distancing, IDPH's guidelines. So half of the student population attends school daily. Whether a student is on an A or B schedule will be determined by administration. We're going to make every effort to keep families on the same schedule. For example, I have a couple of kids in my house from a high school to an elementary student. They're going to try to make sure that those go on the same day or same schedule. This also allows for control of gradual re-entering of the in-person attendance by limited numbers. Some of the considerations that we will give parents will have the choice to have their students' learning experience either be in person or remote. We're going to have parents declare that by a given date the students will participate in person remotely and be for a certain length of time. Next slide, please. Some of the safety precautions for the return of in-person learning. These are, again, based off ISB and IDPH's guidance that they have given us and continually update. Everyone must wear a mask at all times while indoors. That is per ISB guidance. All students will be required to have a symptom check. This can either be done self-certifying at home before school and entering it somehow on some, like a Google form or survey, or when they enter the building. There's going to be sanitation stations available at all building entrances. Parents and visitors will not be permitted into the building. Hand washing will be conducted frequently and during designated times in all grades. Sanitation procedures will increase. Students and staff will adhere to the social distancing guidelines to the greatest extent possible. PPE, personal protective equipment, will be available for everyone. Rerouting when necessary of the traffic flow in the halls. We've already been purchasing tape and things. I know principals have already been working on that and how their building will flow in the hallways and in different areas. And then there's going to be some procedures to be developed and implemented if a student or staff will not wear a mask. And we do have asterisks on a couple of those bullet points where if staff or students are unable to wear a mask for a medical reason, they must provide documentation from their medical provider. And there are some alternative face covers that are going to be provided. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Director of Student Services, Shelley Martin.
Hi. So I'm going to talk about Phase 4C, which is our enhanced blended learning model. The primary focus of this is to address the needs of those vulnerable populations. And when we're talking about vulnerable populations, that could be students with an intensive IEP that their needs are difficult to meet in a remote setting, English language learners, students who are in need of intensive intervention, and others. Those will be done as deficits are determined and we are able to bring them in. We are going to be needing to bring back some of our paraprofessional staff in order to meet the needs of those students when that occurs and in all of the phases. And some paraprofessional staff will be called back as needed and as those needs are identified. Next slide. So when we come to Phase 5, which is going to be our new normal, we hope soon, that'll be our full in-person learning, full-time attendance for all students, implementation of robust safety protocols and guidelines, and it does allow for us to fall back into the other phases as needed without as much disruption to the learning process. They are built to move smoothly between one another as needed and as our community situation dictates. Jason?
All right, I'm here at the end of the presentation on this slide. Just a little bit about the plan development. You know, we've tried to stay up to speed on the latest guidance. Just like I said yesterday, ISB put out some remote learning recommendations for us to look at. That was at 1 p.m. So we've all administrators in the district have worked all summer so far on this. We've had teachers involved and volunteering their time. We've consulted with the ROE. The Fulton County Health Department's been on several meetings with us. So that's been nice to have, is that we're coming together as a community. You know, some of the data that we've used, I really appreciate all the parents and guardians putting together their responses. There was over 1,000, about 1,100 responses. And the staff survey that we put out had 157 responses. So I appreciate people's time. And a lot of this is, you know, the data on that is driving where we saw trends in some of those responses. So I do appreciate and want to give a shout out to those folks for filling that out and giving us some information. So at this time, I want to see if the board has any questions for anybody and open the floor.
Jason, Mike Krulak, teachers, when they are in the building, will be expected to wear their PPE and social distance?
That is correct.
Julie, is there any place in there for parent learning? I didn't see where,
Yeah.
where I'm going with that. I don't have to say any more, I assume.
It's a great question. We have definitely got a lot of great information from parents about the needs of what they need training on. Basic Google navigation, for example, and some of the other platforms, that the teachers use with their classes. So we are absolutely in the works of creating training modules for parents. We've asked teachers if some teachers are willing to participate with that and help us in the delivery, and they are absolutely on board for that. So we know that that is a need, and we are working on creating it.
I want to commend the staff, administration, and parents and people that have helped put these programs together for our students. Understanding that this is something I think everybody I'm looking at here and most of the people that are listening have never seen anything like this. Thank God we've got people that are concerned and feel I feel like we've done the right thing for kids. And if we can keep everybody safe and sound, thank God.
Any further questions for us?
Rolf, it's Matt, and maybe I missed it, so I apologize, but and any one of the three presenters jump in. How specifically are we planning to keep an eye on maybe students that are struggling? And that could just be coursework. It could be internet connectivity. What's going to be available for parents or guardians to help and us identify those kids to make sure they don't get too far behind in a pretty challenging environment, right?
We had a long meeting this morning discussing that very issue. And I think what I'll do is defer to the curriculum director and the director of student learning to discuss that.
Julie, I'll take the one thing that I've been working on, and Dawn Howell, we've been working on, is talking about our network and internet connections across the city. I've also been in contact with Mid-Century and what's available. This spring, we did provide some Wi-Fi hotspots, cellular Wi-Fi hotspots for the families. We're in the process of getting more. I think a good thing to do, and we provided some to our staff. We provided, about 30 altogether this spring. It worked out really well. I'm going to expand that, and Dawn has been going around to the buildings to make sure that there is access outside of every building in the parking lot. So that's an ongoing process, and we're really committed to that. The survey that we put out shows about around 9% of the 1,100 people do not have reliable internet. So if we expand that to our student population to 2,500, we got about 200 and some families that need reliable. So my goal is to try and get as many of them connected as possible. Will we reach 100%? Probably not. But we do have plans in place, and ongoing, we need to plan for things that do come up about the non-online families. And we do have a portion in here that there will be some materials provided and a way to get those materials back, probably similar to our pickup and drop-off system. We haven't worked out all those details yet, but I'm going to turn it over to Julie about the checking in on the families, whether it's academic or SEL or social emotional well-being.
So each of the 5 buildings in the district have been working very hard to develop schedules. Those schedules are not finalized yet. However, within those schedules, each building has committed an amount of time either in the beginning of the day or at the end of the day to address those students that are not engaging, that are not producing work, that they're just worried about in general their social and emotional well-being. In addition to that, each building is committed to taking attendance daily and providing social and emotional learning instruction. Each building has a different plan for what that looks like and different resources that they're using, but they are working together and willing to commit time in the schedule because they know how much of a priority that is.
Okay, great, thanks.
I'm going to add along those same lines. One of the things our paraprofessional staff who are called back will be tasked with is to provide additional support for students and families outside of the regular class time. And for families who are not responding, kids we're not hearing from, concerns we have in that vein, we will be using our social workers along with administrators to follow up to provide the support and encouragement necessary to re-engage those families.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.
Anyone else have any comment or questions?
What steps will we pursue if we've got, I'd say, groups of kids or some kids or just other kids? We all been to school. We all understand it. There's people that are going to come in here and say, I am not going to wear that mask. What steps will we follow at that point in time?
Well, I think the only people that will be in our buildings during the remote phase will be staff members themselves. There will be a disciplinary procedure to go through if they refuse to wear a mask. And what's important is that the mask is a device to protect everybody. The mask is not part of a political agenda. We're apolitical on this. What we're concerned about is providing a safe and healthy environment for all our students, our staff members, and their families. So not wearing a mask is not a negotiable thing. If we have staff members that don't want to wear them, then they are not welcome to work in our buildings. Similarly, if we go through and we move into the next level, we'll wear them blended. Everybody will be expected to wear a mask, including students. If students don't wear a mask, then we will send them home.
I know I've already asked Rolf this. If we go to 100% blended, how long is it going to last? When are we going to look at going into a 4B phase? I'd like for you to answer that again, Rolf, for everyone else, if they haven't asked that already.
I'm not sure I understand the question, Leonard. Do you mean falling back?
At what point will we go to a 4B blended?
Okay.
What parameters are we going to use to maybe move on?
Well, our plan is to constantly review the metrics that are issued by CDC, IDPH, and the guidelines that are issued by the Illinois State Board of Education. If the metrics improve, and when I say those metrics, I mean regional metrics, state metrics, and local metrics. When we feel that is safe enough to move into a full blended model, then we would ask the board to schedule a special board meeting, share the board why we feel it is safe enough to move into the next blended model, and then ask their approval to do so.
Any other questions? All right. Well, we'll move on then to number 6 on it. Action item. Consider approval of reentry remote learning plan. I want a motion, and I want it very distinctively put of what plan we are going to establish.
When you say what plan, are you talking about 4A, 4B, 4C? Are you talking about, is that what you're asking?
Yes, Lori.
Well, I'm going to recommend that we go completely remote. So that to me is 4A.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded by, moved by Lori, seconded by Ben. Any other discussion? I'm going to jump in here. Everybody pretty much, if they don't know by now how I feel about this, I want students in the seats as quick as possible. School is more than just educating our students. It's about life skills. It's about a lot of other things. I want to get kids in where they've, sure, with masks and all the precautions we can do in the 4B plan, I think is a better viable plan for all of our students and parents. I understand that there'll be parents that won't want to send their children. We can do remote in this 4B plan. There'll be students or there'll be teachers that will not want to be in the classroom. I understand that. I would like to see the 4B plan implemented instead. But there's a motion on the floor and it's been seconded. Is there any other discussion?
I will tell you, as a health professional, I will never be able to support anything that's going to put those kids in danger and our staff. I will always be supportive of whatever is the most safe. And for me, that at this time and until there is an immunization or vaccine is going to be remote.
And I completely understand your logic also, Lori. We're in Fulton County and in Canton. I don't know, I've been gone for a couple of weeks now. I know that our numbers have not changed drastically, I don't believe, in Fulton County or Canton. As of right now, we still have the IHSA is still gonna have sports. So they're not quitting. They're not making a decision yet to go.
That doesn't justify for me.
Okay.
It's still the same thing. You've got kids that have got to be safe. You've got community members that still aren't doing what they're supposed to do. And then if you can't see this in a daily thing, I understand what you're saying, but it takes one. It just takes one, and from that, it ripple effect.
And I'm Lori,
I have put this over and over and over in my mind, and from a legal standpoint and everything else. But I just want if this is a discussion item, and I'm putting out my opinion.
Everyone is entitled to one.
Yep. Okay. I think, Matt, you had a comment or a question?
Yeah, I think the concerning part, and we're seeing it around the country, we're seeing it in places that people didn't expect to see it. And there's not a bubble over Fulton County or Canton that avoids this, but there's lots of people walking around asymptomatic, right? That have it, but then they can pass it. And best you could tell, they could pass it, and then it becomes a problem. I'm with Lori. When you have a concern or an issue like this, there is no question we err on the side of safety. I've got a daughter who's a senior. I can't imagine a year ago telling her she was going to start her senior year in a remote learning environment. We just had seniors that went through that to end their senior year, but I would rather have her be in that scenario than for her to have an issue where she got sick or passed something on or lost a classmate or a teacher as a result of it. So I think it's right to err on the side of safety. There's just no other way of thinking about it, in my mind, of course.
Yeah.
I would have a hard time if we had one child, one teacher, one administrator, one bus driver, right on down the line, come down with COVID-9, whatever that rascal is. I'd have a hard time living with that. And that's why I'm in favor of the way I seconded that motion.
Any other comment or discussion, please?
I only have one question.
Yeah, Jane.
What will be the time frame of updating the board? Will it be at every board meeting, or like by email halfway through the month, how things are going, so we know where the problems are lying, where the successes are happening.
I think that's an excellent question, Jane. And we talked about that today. Initially, I had considered reevaluating in October for next semester, possibly. Then I had some of the directors that disagreed with me and maybe looked at 9 weeks. But ultimately, I think that's up to the school board. It could be continuous. It could be monthly. I think whatever you feel comfortable with. But I also think would be beneficial if we talked about it and transparency with the community was an important component of that.
I agree with that. I just would like to know when we get started, how things are going, the number of kids that aren't being able to get the distance learning because of lack of internet, just some of the factors that are involved without waiting till August. We start in August and waiting till the September board meeting to know how things are going.
I do. I think I agree with you. I hate to keep being redundant here, but part of the conversation we had this morning was providing the school board monthly, if not sooner, with district metrics. For example, not only how many people are with internet or without, although that is very important, but also what the attendance rate and engagement rate is of our students. I think that's something that we're going to have to work very hard on. Maybe not, but I think there's kids that are going to be, maybe some that have single parents or low socioeconomic status. We're going to have to adjust this plan to accommodate them. A lot of home visits. Our biggest concern is that a small amount of our children are going to get swallowed up by the system and disappear. And that's something that we will not allow to happen, that we will make sure that those kids are engaged and that they are being educated. Another issue that we talked about was providing RTI services to remediate the kids that we have, because quite frankly, they haven't been in school since March 13th or 16th. And it's very important that we remediate those children and also provide RTI services to them and Title I services as well.
Leonard?
Right. I think it's going to be eye-opening for both the parents and the kids because of the difference in the two methodologies that we're having now with remote learning. I also encourage administrators and whoever to reach out to the parents directly through email or however they want to do that, so that they are having an open line of communication before we even get to that part of starting it, so they understand more directly what's going on.
We actually considered creating a liaison, maybe using one of our parapros, or having teachers call those parents of those students that are struggling or disengaged. I
just think it's going to be different for the parents who weren't used to certain times the kids had to be online and when the teachers were going to be there, because I think they were pretty free to do their work when they wanted to do it. So if we just somehow, I think in this month that we have before, we need to be sure that we have really reached out to the parents so they understand the difference of how it's going to be presented to the kids. That's just my opinion.
No, I think it's a good idea.
I think it's a good point that Jane just made, though, that it's this version is different than the version we experienced when this kind of dropped on all of us in April, March and April, right? And this is a far more disciplined structure, regular contact, daily touch points, grades do count, right? There's a structure around it. We need to make sure that the students understand that and parents and everybody understands that from at least, unless I misunderstood earlier, which I don't think I did as you went through it. The structure is much more like a classroom structure in a remote environment, right? So kudos to the team for putting that together, but we ought to make it clear.
Leonard? Tom?
Yeah.
I'd kind of like to go along with Lori, but I would like to kind of see what happens in the other schools that are going back and what happens to them. And then maybe we will get our students back into the classroom as soon as possible.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's another update that needs to be done. Whether it's every 2 weeks, every week, along with our participation of our students, as we just talked about, what Jane brought up, but also, how soon we can maybe learn or move to maybe a 4B plan to the next step, and see what happens. You understand what I'm trying to say, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Any other discussion or comments? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Roll call, please. Still there,
Lori
Emily?
Yep. Lori Coleman,
Yes.
Ben Bishop,
Yes.
Leonard Barnard,
No.
Matt Keys,
Yes.
Jane Lewis,
Yes.
Tom Snowman,
Yes.
Mike Krulak.
Yes.
6B, consider approval of substitute teacher pay rates for fiscal year 21 through fiscal year 25. We discussed this in closed session, I believe, last board meeting, how the teachers our substitute teachers were not being adequately taken care of. This is an increase that will bring those more in line with some of the other districts in the area and everything else. So, is there a motion to approve this substitute teacher pay rate?
So moved.
Go ahead.
Been moved by Matt and seconded by Ben. Any other discussion? Hearing none. Roll call, please, Emily.
Matt Keys,
Yes.
Ben Bishop,
Yes.
Lori Coleman,
Yes.
Leonard Barnard,
Yes.
Jane Lewis,
Yes.
Tom Snowman,
Yes.
Mike Krulak.
Yes.
6C, consider approval of employment of Miss Mayall, speech language pathologist, Westview Elementary School and Ingersoll Middle School, effective beginning August 2020. The motion to approve this employment. Is there a motion to approve this?
So moved. Tom.
Been moved by Tom, seconded by
Second.
seconded by Ben. Any other more discussion? Roll call, please.
Tom Snowman,
Yes.
Ben Bishop,
Yes.
Leonard Barnard,
Yes.
Jane Lewis,
Yes.
Lori Coleman,
Yes.
Matt Keys,
Yes.
Mike Krulak.
Yes.
6D, consider approval of garbage collection contract with the city of Canton. I hope you all had a chance to look at that. The city has approved that they would remain at the same rate as previously. And is there a motion to approve this?
I move.
So moved.
Been moved by Ben and seconded by someone, please.
Second.
Been seconded by Mike. Any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Ben Bishop,
Yes.
Mike Krulak,
Yes.
Tom Snowman,
Yes.
Jane Lewis,
Yes.
Matt Keys,
Yes.
Lori Coleman,
Yes.
Leonard Barnard.
Yes. Is there any other items to be discussed this evening? Is there a motion to adjourn, please?
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Matt Keys,
Yes.
Lori Coleman,
Yes.
Ben Bishop,
Yes.
Leonard Barnard,
Yes.
Jane Lewis,
Yes.
Tom Snowman,
Yes.
Mike Krulak.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Be safe.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Bye.